How you doing? This is UK Fish ID videos. Through these series of films, I'm going to show you how to identify various British fish, both from the sea and fresh water. We're going to go through what they eat, where they live, and how to identify them from similar species. If you'd like to learn more about identifying UK fish, then why not get my latest book? It's available online and in local bookshops. There's a link in the description if you're interested. This week we're looking at the nation's favourite fish, or at least favourite fish to eat, and that is the cod family. Cod, haddock, pollock, pollack, whatever you want to call them, all that good stuff. We're going to have a look at how to identify them. Let's get into it. In today's video I'm covering cod and their close relatives. If you'd like me to cover a video featuring things that they are related to, such as ling, torsk and rockling, I maybe do another one. Comment down below if you'd like to see that. Now, as I always mention in these videos, you can't positively ID any fish from colour alone. They can change colour so rapidly according to health, age, sexual dimorphism, habitat and stress, so colour in general is only used as a guide in conjunction with other factors. Let's start with the cod. This is a thick-set fish and it varies in background colour from greenish on the fish, which inhabit the deeper waters, to reddish brown on the fish, which have taken up residence in kelp. The back and the sides have dark and light mottling in all cases. The lateral line is conspicuously light, continuous and has a smooth curve over the pectoral fin. The tail fin is slightly convex and the upper jaw overhangs the lower with a huge mouth. A single barbel hangs under its chin and it has 3 dorsal fins that create a distinctive outline for this fish. Cod are the biggest member of the cod family in the UK, with some of them getting well up to 40-50 pounds, although these are absolute monsters, but they can certainly get into the 8, 9 and double figure pound mark, which most other cod species you'd be unlikely to get unless you were further out to sea. In terms of distribution, they're disappearing from its southern range, but it is still present in most of northern Britain. It's found in a variety of habitats, from the shoreline to well down to the continental shelf, in depths of up to 600 metres. Smaller cod will come inshore in the winter, while the larger adults stay further out. Cod generally spawn between February and April in water about 200 metres deep. They will graze, hoovering up items from the seabed to try and engulf bottom-dwelling prey. Cod also talk to each other, with males using grunts generated by the swim bladder when entering into courtship. Next up is the haddock. Relatively small mouth compared to the cod, it also has 3 dorsal fins, the first of which is triangular and 2 anal fins. The lower jaw is shorter than the upper and the barbel is very short. The back is a greeny brown colour with greyish silver sides and at times can have a purple hue. The lateral line is black and there's a black spot above the pectoral fin. This is a really easy way to ID haddock. They're generally much smaller than cod, getting to a few pounds maybe at most, though they can get much bigger than this. They're found all around the British Isles, but particularly further north and in deeper water. They're generally found up to 40 metres on sandy, rocky and shelled seabeds. They will undergo migrations to reach spawning grounds in large groups, and like most cod family species, it's a batch spawner and releases millions of eggs at a time. So the next fish is the pollack. I'm saying that very weirdly because the next fish that's coming up after that is the coalfish, which is also called a pollock. It's one of the reasons why marine fish common names are an absolute nightmare to ID things, because they've often got the same name as a similar species or regional names, so scientific names can be quite useful in these cases, but what I'm talking about is the pollack. The pollack has a typical cod family shape with 3 dorsal fins and 2 anal fins. The lower jaw extends beyond the upper one, and unlike many of its cousins, it has no barbel. The coloration varies according to the waters which the pollack inhabits, from brownish green on the back and yellow green on the sides, to reddish and gold colours in fish which live in kelp covered ground. In smaller fish, the colours are patchy and tend towards golden. The dark lateral line curves sharply down the middle of the body over the pectoral fin. The pollock inshore are often smaller than their cousins out to sea, which can get to weights of 30 pounds plus. They'll hang around in loose shoals when young and become more solitary as they grow, often mixed up with coalfish, as I've mentioned, confusingly also called pollock, Pollack are broader and have a more brown coloration and a stooped lateral line. They're found all around the British coastline and they prefer rough ground in rocky reefs, wrecks, ledges and banks are all normal hangouts for these fish. Spawning occurs between January and April in deep water, and like many cod family fish, the eggs are dispersed into open water and are left to be carried out by the current. So the next one, the coalfish or pollock, is similar to the pollack in body shape, although the larger specimens tend to have a rounder cross section. The first anal fin starts below the gap where the first and second dorsal fin. The back is also very dark greeny blue, which merges sharply into silvery white on the sides and belly. The lateral line is lightly coloured and pretty much straight. Small specimens over kelp may have a golden sheen to the sides. It's also commonly known as safe, coley and pollock, often confused with its cousin, the pollack. Can be quite numerous inshore, but has larger specimens in deeper water, up to 30 pounds in the UK. They're found all around the British coastline, but they start to become way more common the further north you go, certainly into Scotland and northern England. Rough ground is preferred, so rocky reefs, wrecks, ledges and banks are all normal hangouts for these fish. Coalfish can be quite sedentary, finding a good spot and staying relatively close to it if there's sufficient food and habitat. They form loose shoals and breed between January and April further out to sea. The next fish is much smaller, and that's the whiting. It's a slender fish with pale greys and silvery whites on the body, has a high lateral line that curves upwards and eyes that are relatively large. Along the back there's 3 dorsal fins, and juveniles have a small barbel which disappears as they grow to adulthood. Young whiting move out to deeper water and will shelter on jellyfish species, darting to them for cover when a predator approaches. The whiting are somehow immune to its sting. Whiting only generally get to a couple of pounds at most. They're common across the British coastline, and you often find them in muddy and gravelly bottoms. The next fish is the pouting. It's a deep-bodied fish with a coppery brown flank. Along the sides it has 4 or 5 darker bands across the upper body and a black spot at the base of the pectoral fin. Younger pout tend to be more silvery grey in colour, and the bands may be absent. It has a barbel on its chin and 3 dorsal fins. It's also sometimes called a bib. They don't generally get much over a pound, and they're often much smaller than this. The distribution is all over the British Isles, but are very common in the waters around the English Channel and the southern North Sea. Being a small fish, they're generally found in shallower water when young, with sandy bottoms, but the larger fish tend to shoal near or over rocks and wrecks in deeper water. They generally form large shoals around shelter, like overhangs and wrecks, and they conserve energy and wait for food to come to them. The last species is the porcod. Commonly mixed up with pouting, the key difference is no black spot on the pectoral fin, a slender overall body, and if you draw a line from the end of the first dorsal fin, it won't meet the anal fin, whereas it does in a pouting. The colour of the porcod is a uniform brown or yellow generally. Eyes are big with a single noticeable barbel on the chin. They don't get very big, around about a few ounces. They're found all around the British coastline, and they like to shelter on wrecks, rocky outcrops, reefs and ledges, are often home to a few porcod mixed in with pouting. Spawning occurs in the winter offshore in the southern part of its range, while further north it might not spawn until April, as it needs temperatures to be about 8 Celsius to trigger spawning. So to summarise, how do we tell the difference between all the fish that we've mentioned? For cod, it's the size and the large mouth. Although younger ones can be a little bit speckled, they still have a big mouth relative to their size, which most other cod family fish don't have in those proportions. For haddock, it's a spot on the flanks. If you can see that spot, it's a haddock. Whiting have a silvery and slender shape, more so than cod and haddock. For pouting and porcod, these two often get confused, so check the dorsal fins. The back of the dorsal fin needs to meet the anal fin on a pouting, whereas it won't do that on a porcod. You also have a black mark on a pouting and not a porcod, and with porcod, the pelvic fin doesn't touch the anal fin, but it does on a pouting. With pollack and coley, or coalfish, whatever you want to call them, pollock have large eyes, whereas coalfish have relatively small eyes for the body. The lateral line is straight in coalfish, but it's curved in pollock. The lower jaw protrudes noticeably on pollock, only just in coalfish, and pollock have a general brown or bronzy colour, while coalfish have a silver, black or green colour. Don't forget, if you want to learn more about UK fish, do grab a copy of my book. There's a link in the description if you want to find out more. Hope you enjoyed that video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds for you and it really helps the channel out. Go and have a look at some of the other UK Fish ID videos we've got on the channel, as well as the underwater and angling content on here. See you next time. Cheers. If you enjoyed this vid, why not check out this other video right here? If you can, please subscribe to the channel. It only takes a couple of seconds and it really helps me out. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.